Good day. Today I will discuss to you the topic on data collection and construction of the questionnaire. And I would like to give an acknowledgement to my friend. Majority of the slides I borrowed it from my friend Dr. Garcia. She passed away many years ago. May her soul rest in peace. Okay, so these are the learning objectives for today's session, that at the end you will be able to know the purpose of data collection, identify the sources of public health data, discuss the importance and objectives of data collection, explain the principles followed in data collection, and then discuss the different techniques used in data collection, and list and explain the characteristics of statistical data. And lastly, towards the end, you should be able to understand the principles in constructing a questionnaire. Okay, let's talk of the purpose of data collection. You see, data forms the basis on which every important decision should be made. And these are some of the purposes of data collection: to evaluate programs of or projects. So we need to collect data. To set priorities. So we only collect data that are of priority. To allocate resources. So another purpose. And then to determine the factor of causation and control of the disease, if that is the objective of the study. And to assess the health status of the population. And the principles of data collection will be the following. Data that we collect should be in accordance always with the objective of the study. And that is the reason why we need to be very, very clear of what our objective is. You only collect the data that will answer the objective of the study. And the collected information should be accurate. You must understand that when we collect the data should be accurate. And later on, we'll be talking of qualities of the data to be collected. And samples must be adequate and be representative of the population. When you collect subjects, for example, participants, they should have been collected based on the sample size that you have made. And the sampling methodology should be representative, should be made in such a way that it should be representative of the population. We talked about this when we talked of sampling methodology, and subjects should be cooperative. Now, what are the methods that we use in collecting primary data? Because we must understand that there is such a thing as primary and secondary data. Primary data are those data that we collect ourselves, the investigator himself collects. And secondary data are data that have been collected in the past, and then you just collect the data, the medical records, for example, but we'll give emphasis to collecting data, primary data. So these are the 6 different ways of collecting primary data: observation, interview, survey questionnaire, experimentation, registration, and recording, and case study. We will give more emphasis in our discussion on the first 3. The number 4, we won't discuss this anymore. And then even the number 5, we won't discuss this anymore because this is not really part of what we will discuss to you. And then just a little information on registration and recording. You see, for small scale study, the most commonly used method for collecting primary data are interviews, questionnaire, and observation. So again, as I said, we'll discuss each of these one by one. So we first discuss a method of data collection, that is observation. That's a systematic method of data collection that relies on the researcher's ability to gather data through their senses. And what do you observe when you do observation? You observe verbal and non-verbal communications. So not only do you observe what they say, but even the non-verbal communication, the surrounding atmosphere, the atmosphere when you observe them, the habits, the culture, and the situation. And this can be done through experiments. And we need to keep meticulous records of the observation. When we do observation, we need to record the details of what we observe, of what the investigator observes. Because what you see isn't always what you get. The actual behavior is documented rather than responses related to the behavior. So people might respond differently, and this is what you see. So you document the actual behavior, and the observed can act differently when surveilled. So we know that if the investigator is there, if participants know that they are being observed by an investigator, they act differently, and the researcher's observation are likely to be biased by their own views. So this is another problem with an observation. So we actually call the tendency of people to increase their production if they know that they are being observed. We call that the Hawthorne effect. Because we cannot really literally observe everything. Now, these are the different types of observations. We have the structured observation. This is a highly systematic, and we rely on predetermined criteria. So there are predetermined criteria related to the people, events, practices, issues, behaviors, actions, situations, and phenomena being observed. So you create criteria. These are the different criteria that I need to observe. So this is a structured observation. Semi-structured will be used when observers generally use some manner of observation schedule or checklist. So there is a checklist. There are things that you need to observe to organize the observations, but they also attempt to observe and record the unplanned and or the unexpected. So this is semi-structured observation. And when we talk of unstructured observation, observers attempt to observe and record without predetermined criteria. You observe things that you see. You don't need a checklist to observe. So what you see, you try to record them. This is an unstructured observation. So what are the steps to an effective observation? We first determine what needs to be observed, and then plan, prepare the checklist if it is a structured observation, how to record data, select participants. Well, this could be using random or probability sampling, or non-probability sampling, non-random. Then conduct the observation, taking note of the venue, the duration of the observation, and even the recording materials, and then compile the data collected, analyze, and interpret the data. Okay. The second method of data collection is by the use of interviews. This is an effective way of gathering information, and they can be conducted either by face-to-face, by telephone, or by online, more commonly now using the Zoom or the Google Meet. And this can involve verbal and non-verbal communications. So these are interviews. And then the types of interviews can also be structured where you have pre-established questions asked in a predetermined order using a standard mode of delivery. So you have a list of questions that you will be asking the respondents. Now, a semi-structured interview will be neither fully fixed nor fully free. So there is some flexibility. You have some pre-established questions, but then you can also ask things that are not written in the questions that you have. Unstructured interviews attempts to draw out information without the aid of predetermined questions. So you ask questions that you think, and based from the answers, you ask more questions. So these are unstructured interview. This is a no-holds-barred interview. Now, steps to an effective interview: you select the subjects or the key informants, and then you conduct the interview, analyze, and interpret the collected data from the interview. Now, what are the advantages of an interview? An interview will yield relatively more complete, accurate, and consistent information because you actually go to the people, you actually go to them and then get the data, and so you'll be able to collect complete and accurate information. And the greater proportion of usable returns is expected since more people will respond when they are approached or contacted directly. This is in contrast to a survey questionnaire where you give out the questionnaire to people and then people will just answer them. You might not be able to get the responses of the people, but with an interview, because people are contacted directly or personally, you approach them, you would be able to have a greater proportion of usable returns. And the interviewer is able to clarify any misinterpretation by the respondents when you, for example, when you ask the participant and then you think that the participant does not seem to understand your question, so you can further ask, you can ask more questions, or the respondents can clarify the questions from you. Limitations of an interview: usually this is more expensive because for you to be able to collect more information, because for you to be able to gather more people for the interview, you need to train people. So, and training people will involve cost, so that all the interviewers will be asking the same things, and the interviewer should be able to get the concept, the objective of the study. They should be able to understand the complete objective of the study, and that is why it will involve more cost. So the interviewer's behavior may deliberately or unintentionally influence the respondent's reply. For example, if the interviewer is biased, and then he may deliberately or unintentionally influence the respondent's reply. And the interviewer may be subject to 4 biases. He might ask questions that may lead to the respondents to give answers that reflect the interviewer's prejudices. So this is one problem with an interview. He may note down those responses that he expects than those actually stated by the respondent if he is biased. So he might just take note of the responses that he likes, and he may tend to favor certain responses wanted by those conducting the interview, and he may turn in dishonestly the collected information. So these are the 4 possible biases limited that will involve limitations of an interview. Now, next is survey questionnaire. This is the most common data collection instrument. In the basic types of survey questionnaire questions can be open-ended questions, and this also is known as unstructured questions, because there is free response. Subjects use their own words for the response. And open-ended questions encourage a full, meaningful answer using the subject's own knowledge and or feelings. So the respondents will be able to exactly give the responses that he wants. And this can generate rich and candid data, but it can be data that is difficult to analyze. So open-ended questions are good questions. They are actually easy to do, easy to make, because you just have to formulate the questions, but it is difficult to analyze. Close-ended questions, these are also called structured questions. These questions force the respondents to choose from a range of predetermined choices or responses, and they generally are easy to encode and statistically analyze because the data are already there. They can be dichotomous questions or multiple choice question. Now, during this pandemic, we use the Google form. In questions, we can phrase the questions in such a way that they are close-ended in the form of a dichotomous question or a multiple choice, where people will just choose from the responses that you have provided. So examples of dichotomous questions: do you drink? Yes or no? Or do you agree, disagree? Okay, and then multiple choice: choose from a list. What would you drink more often? Okay, so ranking. So you can have these choices. And then you can also have the rating scale, the Likert type scaling. Is it normal for teenagers to binge drink? So disagree, unsure, or agree. A lot of people want the 5-point Likert scale, but really I refrain from doing that, because it will be very, very difficult for respondents to distinguish between a strongly disagree and disagree, and then agree and strongly agree. So I just advise, anyway, when you do analysis, statistical analysis, I will just I will just lump disagree and agree and the strongly disagree and the strongly agree and agree as one. I normally lump them in the analysis. So better that you just say disagree, unsure, or agree. Unless, of course, you are talking of degree of agreement. You are now talking of degree of agreement. There can be questions that will give some form of degree of agreement, and then the 5-point Likert scale may be more suitable for that, rather than just the 3-point Likert scale. And then we can also have ordering options. Place the following in the order of preferences. Okay, we talk of the different types of questioning techniques, whether it is a self-administered questionnaire, or it can also be a face-to-face interview, or a telephone interview, or online or using emails. Now, questioning And instruments, we have the questionnaire. These are self-administered by the this is self-administered by the respondent. Therefore, all instructions contained in it are meant for the respondent. So this is a questionnaire. And the interview schedule is a list of questions to be addressed by an interviewer to the respondent. The interview guide is a list of topics that the interviewer expects to cover in the course of the interview. So when we talk of schedule, these are list of questions, and when we talk of guide, this is a list of topics. Now, making good questionnaires, you need to plan a user-friendly format. The format should be user-friendly, easy to understand. You gather demographic data like age, sex, etc. only when necessary, because you need to guarantee anonymity of the respondents. You ensure ease in the tabulation by using the Scantron forms, but of course now the Google form is more popular now. Then ask well-phrased and unambiguous questions that can be answered clearly. And then develop for completeness, get all the data, and pilot test the instrument or pre-test the instrument. With Google Form, you can actually put that the question is required, so that the people will be forced to answer to complete the responses. Okay, remember, you should include in the questionnaire an introductory statement about the purpose of the survey. At the beginning, you need to introduce what the survey or what the objectives of the survey are, a motivational reason why the respondents should take it, and then the instruction should be clear, language is simple, short, and user-friendly, avoiding difficult and ambiguous questions that cannot be understood. Later on, we'll be talking of some tips, and then reminder to participants that they are taking the survey anonymously, so that they will answer the questions as honestly as they can. Advantages of questionnaire for scientific data. These are useful for qualitative and quantitative information. They are easiest to administer, but of course difficult to construct, because you need to formulate the different choices that people are expected to answer. And the biases of the interviewer are eliminated. So when you do interview, for example, the biases of the interviewer can be seen. But with the questionnaire, these biases can be eliminated. The respondents can fill out the form in privacy of his home at his convenience. So they can fill out the form at his most convenient time. And confidential information that could not be given in a direct interview may be more freely divulged. So confidential information, because the respondents are answering the questions anonymously, and then they might be able to give confidential or sensitive information. And a wide area may be covered within a short period of time, meaning you should be able to give the questionnaire there is a wide coverage. You can give this through social media, you can give this through emails and all. And so there is a wide coverage in a short period of time. Very, very quickly can you disseminate the questionnaire. Limitations of the questionnaire. Okay, low response rate. You might be able to give out questionnaire to thousands of people, but you'd be happy to get half of the respondents. So normally there is a low response rate with a questionnaire. And vague terms cannot be clarified if the researcher is not there. And that's the reason why, if you are making a questionnaire, terms should be clear and ambiguous, because because the respondents cannot clarify what the researcher exactly means. Open-ended questions will not get much response. That's the reason why if we are making a survey questionnaire, we advise that you make open and close-ended questions, because many people might not be able to respond, especially those who are lower educational attainment. They might not be able to respond to open-ended questions, and usually does not work well with elderly and poorly educated population. Okay, so this is one limitation of the survey questionnaire. Now, steps to an effective survey questioning: you prepare the survey questions, formulate and choose types of the survey questions, write instructions, and make copies. Then select the respondents, administer the survey questionnaire, the date, the venue, the time, then tabulate the collected data, and lastly, analyze and interpret the collected data. And then, as I said, I won't discuss to you experimentation and case study, but just a word about registration and recording. This is a routine collection of data through established system on recording of events as they occur. So you record in the registration and the recording of data. Okay, let's talk of the characteristics of data that you collect, of statistical data. Accuracy means closeness of a measured or computed value to its true value. So that's also the same as truthful and correct. And it will talk, when we talk of the bull's eye, accuracy will be the closeness to the bull's eye, if the bull's eye is the true value. Precision is the same as repeatability or reliability. This is stability or consistency of information that you collect. You always collect the same information, and it means sharply defined or measured. There is repetitiveness of the data. The data that you collect can be repeated, and the data are close. The data that you collect are close to each other, and therefore, when you say precision, this would be applicable only to data collected repeatedly. You cannot talk of precision with just one data collection. So when you collect data repeatedly, and then you get the same results, and then the data is precise. So we normally distinguish precision from accuracy using the bull's eye. So this one is both accurate and precise. Okay, this is accurate but not precise. Later on, I will give a word on this one. And this is not accurate but precise. And this one is neither accurate nor precise. But I would like to believe that accuracy presupposes precision. I don't think you'd be able to get an accurate data that is not precise. But of course, later on you will understand that when we talk of precision, we can also talk of the 95% confidence interval. But yeah, I think I discussed that with you when I discuss it with in the research design. Another quality of a statistical data: completeness, that's adequacy and representativeness of the sample size. So sample size is adequate, and it should be representative of the population. And validity, lastly, the validity, that's the extent to which a technique measures what it is supposed to measure. So validity, it measures what you are supposed to measure. So we have what we call the internal validity, the validity of the inferences drawn as they pertain to the actual subjects of the study. So, in research, when we talk of internal validity, okay, the results will be valid to the actual subjects that you collect in the study. When we talk of external validity, this is also the same as generalizability, meaning you infer results from the samples from the study population outside of the study population. You generalize results from samples to population. That is external validity. You see, in research, we want our research to be well, of course, first, internally valid. It has to be internally valid. Results have to be internally valid. The methodology is correct. The data that you collect are correct. And then we also want our research to be externally valid, meaning results can be generalized from samples to population. We want all research to be externally valid. We don't just want to make a research that is internally valid, that's only true to the population that we collect. Now, this is the last topic. We'll talk a little bit of how to construct a questionnaire. These are just some tips in constructing a questionnaire. A questionnaire can be a good device or tool in research to answer specific questions that the researcher wants to know. And then its construction, therefore, is of paramount importance for him to be able to achieve the objectives of the study. A while ago, we talked about making a questionnaire that should answer the objectives of the study. Don't ask questions that are beyond the objectives of the study. Thus, it is necessary to construct the questionnaire carefully and with much serious thoughts. If there is an available, validated questionnaire that will be able to answer the objective of your study, and then you might want to use that. You don't make a questionnaire yourself and then validate it later on. But as I said, better if you already have a validated questionnaire, better that you use that questionnaire. Okay, so some tips in the construction. Begin with a description of what the questionnaire is all about, describing its purpose, the objective of the questionnaire, and include instructions for filling out the questionnaire. Instructions have to be clear, and include a reasonable deadline to complete the questionnaire, because people, if you give out questionnaire to people and you don't give the deadline, people might just not answer your questions. So better that you give a reasonable deadline to complete the questionnaire, so that people will be motivated to answer your questions. Be clear about the objectives of the study, ensuring that the questionnaire will be able to answer the objectives of the study. As I said a while ago, don't include questions that have nothing to do with the objectives of the study. It will just add to the time that people will be answering your questions, but their answers may not really be needed. Know the characteristics of the possible participants, such as the age, educational level, language barrier, and culture, so that when you formulate your questionnaire, they will be suitable for this particular participants. Make instructions that are clear, simple, and easy to understand. Instructions should be clear and begin with a non-threatening question. Use plain and simple language, avoiding jargon and unfamiliar acronyms. Even if you think that this acronym is familiar, you need to spell out, because not everyone might be able to understand acronyms. And avoid using jargons, especially medical jargons, and your respondents are lay people. Choose a measurement scale that is simple, like yes or no, agree, disagree, true, false, and multiple choice up to 4 using 4 up to 5 choices or options. So you will note again that I just want you to make, this is my recommendation, that better that you just talk of agree and disagree rather than the 5-point Likert scale. As I said, this is simple and easy to understand. As much as possible, avoid too many choices like the 5-point Likert scale if it is not really necessary. If the level of agreement is not really that necessary, then you avoid. At most, just give 3 choices: agree, disagree, and neutral. When you say neutral, keep the questionnaire as short as possible without compromising completeness of the information that you want to obtain. Without compromising completeness. And the reason why we want the questionnaire to be as short as possible is people might not want to answer your questionnaire. If the questionnaire can be completed in 30 minutes or in 1 hour, I won't answer your questionnaire. So 15 minutes would probably the longest. So 5 to 10 minutes, we want our respondents to be able to finish answering the questions. And focus on what you really want to determine as formulated in the objectives. So the reason why I keep on repeating this is that it is very important for you to ask questions that will only answer your objectives, and this has something to do with the duration of time that they answer your question. Avoid asking questions that are not necessary to answer the objectives of the study. Again, I'm repeating it. And questions on demographic characteristics are best treated towards the end of the questionnaire so that the questionnaire is focused on the topic at hand. Many people, when they, especially students and even doctors, residents, faculty members, would normally begin with the demographic information. So the age, sex, demographic information. So they say that's part 1. These are information on the clinical profile or whatever. And then towards the end, only then they make the questions that are more important. So my suggestion is that better that you focus first, begin with the questions that you would want to ask the respondents, and towards the end talk of the demographic profile. So, okay, ask only 1 question per item. Never ask two questions in an item, in 1 item, and avoid double-barreled questions that are difficult to answer. For example, avoid this question: do you exercise and eat healthy diet? So you will note that there's only one item, and then you have 2 questions: exercise and healthy diet. So avoid this type of questions. Have you stopped leaving the house unnecessarily during this time of pandemic? This is a double-barreled question. It presupposes that people leave the house unnecessarily. So you avoid this type of questions. Avoid loaded questions. Don't ask loaded questions. For example, avoid this kind of question: will you vote for Robredo since he has the best accomplishment of all the candidates? This is a loaded question, so try to avoid this kind of question. Never ask questions phrased negatively. So don't ask questions that are phrased negatively. For example, avoid this kind of question: will you not vote for Marcos Jr. since he has many records of unpaid taxes? So this is a negatively worded question. Don't ask this kind of question. And this is also double-barreled since he has many records of unpaid taxes. So again, you try to avoid these questions. Last year, when I had my immunization, the first time that I had my immunization, I was scheduled to have my immunization for COVID-19 in NCH. I was also connected during the time in National Children's Hospital, and I had to answer a Google form. And then there are questions that are there were questions related to things to my status, comorbidity profile, and there are some questions that are worded negatively. And then, for example, one of the questions was, uh, uh, "Do you not have allergy? Do you not have allergy?" And then my answer was, uh, "No." I mean, the meaning is that when I say no, I meant I don't have allergy. But the question was, "Don't you have allergy?" And then I said no. And then one other question was, "Don't you have comorbidity? Don't you have comorbidity?" And then I said, "Yes," meaning I have comorbidity. But then the next question after that was, if no, then specify what comorbidity. But I said yes. So it just came into my mind that when they said, "Don't you have allergy?" the answer should be yes. Meaning, if I say yes, I don't have allergy. But normally people, when we answer, so I had to replace all my answers. You see, when people ask us negative questions, so for example, the question for example is, "Won't you attend the class of Dr. Rian Dilar?" And then people will normally say no, that means they won't attend. Or, won't you come and visit me today?" And people will say no, that means they won't come, diba? But really, when you say, "Won't you attend the class?" and then if you don't want to attend, and then you will say yes, meaning you don't want to attend the class. So, but as I said, never ask a negatively worded question. Proofread your questionnaire when you are done, and then when you have written all the questions, proofread them and check for grammatical errors. Don't make questionnaires with grammatical errors. And at the end, thank the respondents. If possible, give them rewards. Okay, just a final word on validating a questionnaire, because there are a lot of misconception on this. Pre-testing and validation are two different things. People think that pre-testing is the same as validation. You validate a questionnaire if a questionnaire measures a domain. Meaning, if it does not measure a domain, you need not validate the questionnaire. And questionnaires that will only collect information about topics in your objectives, for example, enumeration of factors you want to determine, you don't need to validate that questionnaire. But you need to pre-test the questionnaire. So as I said, pre-testing and validation are two different things. You pre-test a questionnaire only to know whether people understand the questions that you would like to ask them. I think this is my last, and we'll discuss discuss the questions, if you have any questions, in class. So, thank you for listening.